let's go into the first thing that you're going to do, which is to add a new organization. So an organization for us represents a brand for you. So it could be a specific client brand. It could be a location. We do recommend that you use an organization for every GMB. So if you're working with a local client who has, say, 5 different locations and correspondingly they have 5 different GMBs, you're going to want to use 5 different organizations. And the reason for that is because the map link is different. The address is going to be different. The phone number may be different, all that sort of thing. And so we want to have every organization mapped tightly with what Google ties together into a given GMB. The form is fairly straightforward. You give it a name, so we can call it a test organization. You give it a contact name. You need to give it either a contact phone number or a contact email address. This is a requirement. We do have to have contact information for this client. And if you don't do this, we'll just throw an error. So if you run into some weird situation where you don't have an email address or a phone number, you're going to have to come up with something. You'll need to make something up. The About Us shows up in the organization page and on the sidebar of every press release that's hosted on our site. And we'll go over that in a minute and kind of look to see what those look like. This is where you can put kind of a summary, marketing type of message, anything along those lines. People do see these pages, so this is an opportunity to kind of present that brand or that business in the positive light. Here's an organization address freeform block. So you would, put it however, makes sense. Somewhere, California, I don't know what the zip code is in California, right? Structure this however you're structuring it elsewhere. So it should match very closely to whatever Google has on your business profile, whatever you have on your main website, it should match as closely as possible. This goes out with every press release. It goes out to every press release pickup. So it's important that it, matches very tightly with what the entity, relationship in Google has for you as well. Facebook ID, this bit here is what people usually get wrapped around the axle on, either the ID number or the string after facebook.com in a short URL for that Facebook profile. This lets you embed it. Some people will type the whole URL in. That's not what we need here. We just need that little ID number. The Twitter handle, you can include this if you want. Right now, we don't do anything with this. It just sits there. It's just one of those things that we have an option for. We may or may not in the future be able to do that. For a while, there was some problems with embedding a Twitter profile. I haven't looked in the last couple of years to see if that is actually still the case or not. The other thing that you're going to need, obviously, is a website URL. So we'll say, this is also a requirement. You will not have a valid organization if you don't provide a website URL. You'll want, if it's a local business, to provide us with the map embed URL. If you want to know how to get this, here's a little Vimeo video on how to get the embed URL for that map. It's fairly straightforward, but if you've not done it before, just watch the video. It's like 2 minutes long or something like that, and drop that embed URL in here. Show website preview is another thing that some people get wrapped around the axle on. Honestly, it should always be on. What this does is it embeds the website as an iframe on the press release pages, and that gives you an extra iframe embed of that website. It's a great ranking signal, and so there's no reason not to have that on. Similarly, the secondary embed URL, if you had another page you wanted to embed in your press release pages and the organization page on pressadvantage.com, then you would put that in here. This could be an ID page, it could be an iframe form, it could be any other embed URL or URL that you'd like to embed. You could do that. It shows up as a 1x1 pixel basically on the bottom of a press release, so people don't see it, but the search engines certainly see it and they crawl it. And so that's a great way of getting some extra embed power towards a page that is not necessarily attractive from a visual perspective. You can hide an organization off of our website. Let's say you just didn't want it to show up on our page at all because you don't want our name associated with it, or let's say you worked with a client for a long time and they jacked you around and they charged you back for $30,000 and you want to just take everything down. You can just deselect this and then we won't show anything on our homepage. It's actually something that people sometimes will turn off, not knowing what it does. Unless you have a real big reason for doing that, leave it on. Showing cross links and no follow links, they affect the links at the bottom of a page, and we can show you that in a minute. It's a way to turn off those links or to have those links follow or no follow. Any type of organization-wide schema. So, this is something that you would put, the schema you'd put on the homepage of this business. You'd put it in here as well. And then it will go out and it'll be attached to every release and to the organization page. There's also a release-specific schema that we'll cover in a minute that's additional to this. Here you just put in the schema, ideally just the JSON code. We've talked about this in one of the previous sessions. Make sure you run it through a lint process if you're getting errors. A lot of times, you'll get some malformed JSON out of tools. Really important to do that. This next thing here, the standard release instructions. This is important for people with regulatory requirements. If you're working with somebody that has very specific needs that are covered in every press release, these instructions get appended to every single release order. So, for example, we have one customer who's working with a client who's a podiatrist, and they have a lot of focus on plantar's warts. And if plantar's warts are spelled different than how you might think, because it's PLANTAR, and he kept having to correct that. And so we put in here in the standard release instructions, be sure to spell plantar's warts this way, and then he didn't have to go and add that to every single release order for that organization. You might have, let's say you're working with an attorney and they have very specific requirements about what you can't say, then you would include that there. Similarly, maybe you're working with someone who's pitching supplements and there are definitely some requirements there. So put those in here. It saves you time. So you're not repeating the same instruction boilerplate with every single press release order. We'll go over building retargeting pixels in a minute, but you would attach it to all releases from this organization right here. And what that does is that pixel code that you provide us with, in a different area, that will automatically get added to the press release. It's technically any type of code, so you can get creative. A lot of people who are using it just for ad retargeting will try to use like an image, pixel or something like that instead of JavaScript, because JavaScript does get filtered out. But you can try working with JavaScript tags as well. And there's a lot of upstream folks that don't filter all that out. And then finally, you'd upload a logo for it. You just click here, upload the image, just like any other thing. It's pretty straightforward. And then I won't be able to save this because I already have a test org. So we'll change that name. And then we just click save. Your organization's been saved. Voila. This is a list of all of your organizations. You'll see that there's a link here so we can look at that organization in detail. Is it approved or not for premium distribution? You have to go through a small process before you can send a press release up for premium distribution, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then this little pencil icon over here, this is how you would change it. So let's say we wanted to change the settings for the Press Advantage one, and we wanted, instead of Bobby, we wanted to have it be me. We go back down here, save the changes. And then if we look at it again, it's now me, okay? If we click on this link here to look at the press release or Press Advantage organization page, this gives us a couple of links. So we get the organization's media room. We get an embeddable version of that media room. So we'll compare those in just a second here. And then right here we get, this is where you would find the RSS feed for that organization. What this is it's an RSS feed of every release that goes out for that organization. So anytime you send out a press release for that client, you're going to get a new entry in that RSS feed, which you can run into, Zapier or, some other, feed processor and do magic with it. You can repost it in places, you can build links to it, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. The releases, this shows all the different releases for that organization. Obviously this has a bunch of test stuff in it, but you can see that this shows all the different releases here. You can download the release report, you can download a release PDF. This is very similar to what you'll see over in the press releases tab, but it is scoped to just that organization. So as you've been working with us for a while, press release list is going to fill up. You might have 20 different clients and you're sending out press releases. You might have 200 press releases there. It's a little bit of a pain to dig through and figure out, where all the press releases are for one specific client. That's where you'd come here to the organization page, and then you click here and look and find those releases. And then similarly, we'll talk about scheduled orders later, but this is where you would find the scheduled orders for that specific client as well. Okay, any questions about the organizations? Because that kind of covers the orgs. Mary, if you reach out to support, they can send you some resources that can help you get started with some basic schema.